Have you ever forgiven someone only to watch them disrespect you again? Only to realize that your kindness was mistaken for weakness, your patience was taken for granted, and your forgiveness became an invitation for more harmful behavior. Many people believe forgiveness is always the mature choice, always the healthy choice, always the psychologically superior choice. We're often taught that holding people accountable is harsh, that walking away is selfish, and that truly good people forgive no matter what happens. There is a major misunderstanding about forgiveness, because forgiveness is not the same as permission. Forgiveness is not the same as reconciliation, and forgiveness is certainly not the same as allowing repeated disrespect. In psychology, self-respect and emotional boundaries are essential for healthy relationships. Without them, forgiveness can become a doorway through which toxic behavior repeatedly enters your life. The problem is that many people confuse compassion with self-sacrifice. They continue giving chances long after trust has been broken. They excuse behaviors that should never be normalized. And they remain loyal to people who consistently show them disrespect. Over time, this creates a dangerous psychological pattern. The more disrespect is tolerated, the more acceptable it becomes. The more acceptable it becomes, the more likely it is to continue. Eventually, people stop seeing your forgiveness as a gift. They start seeing it as a guarantee. A guarantee that no matter what they do, no matter how they treat you, no matter how many boundaries they cross, you will still remain. But emotionally intelligent people understand something important. Not every relationship deserves unlimited access to your life. Not every apology deserves another opportunity, and not every act of forgiveness should come without consequences. Today we're exploring 7 disrespectful acts that should never be casually forgiven. Not because of revenge, not because of anger, not because holding grudges is healthy, but because some behaviors reveal a person's character more clearly than their words ever could. When someone repeatedly shows you who they are, emotional intelligence requires paying attention. Because protecting your peace is not cruelty, protecting your boundaries is not selfishness, and protecting your self-respect is not something you should ever feel guilty about. Let's begin. One of the deepest forms of disrespect occurs when someone intentionally embarrasses you in front of others. Psychologists understand that public humiliation attacks more than feelings. It attacks identity, it attacks dignity, and it can leave emotional scars that remain long after the moment itself has passed. Human beings are naturally social creatures. Our brains are wired to seek belonging, acceptance, and social connection. For thousands of years, social approval has been linked to safety and survival. Because of this, public humiliation triggers powerful emotional reactions. When someone deliberately mocks, ridicules, criticizes, or degrades you in front of others, they are doing more than expressing an opinion. They are attempting to lower your social value in the eyes of the people around you. Sometimes this behavior appears as sarcasm. Sometimes it comes disguised as a joke. And sometimes it is presented as just being honest. But the emotional impact remains the same. The goal is often not communication. The goal is dominance. Psychologists recognize that people who repeatedly humiliate others in public are frequently seeking a sense of control, superiority, or social power. By making someone else appear smaller, they temporarily make themselves feel bigger. Emotionally intelligent people recognize something important. A person who truly respects you will protect your dignity, especially when disagreements arise. They may challenge your ideas, they may offer criticism, but they will do so without attacking your worth as a person. Someone who humiliates you publicly often values power more than respect. They prioritize winning over understanding, control over connection, superiority over empathy. And when someone repeatedly chooses power over respect, they reveal a pattern that should never be ignored. Because healthy relationships are built on mutual respect, not fear, not embarrassment, and not public shame. When humiliation becomes a recurring behavior, forgiveness alone rarely changes it. True change requires accountability, self-awareness, and genuine respect. Without those qualities, the cycle usually repeats itself. And that is why public humiliation is one of the clearest signs of deep disrespect. Everyone makes mistakes. Everyone occasionally breaks promises. No relationship is perfect. No human being gets everything right all the time. In fact, psychology tells us that occasional disappointment is a normal part of every healthy relationship. But there is a significant difference between a mistake and a pattern. A mistake is followed by accountability. A pattern is followed by excuses. A mistake happens once and creates regret. A pattern happens repeatedly and creates damage. Trust is the foundation of every healthy relationship. Without trust, relationships become filled with uncertainty, anxiety, and emotional distance. Once broken, trust can be repaired. Twice broken, it becomes fragile. Repeatedly broken, it becomes evidence. Evidence that words and actions no longer align. Evidence that promises cannot be accepted at face value. Evidence that reliability may not be part of that person's character. Psychologically, repeated betrayal teaches your brain an important lesson. This person cannot be relied upon. Your mind naturally begins adjusting its expectations. You become more cautious, more guarded, more hesitant to believe what you're being told. And this response is not weakness. It is your brain attempting to protect you from future disappointment. Many people continue giving chance after chance because they focus on promises instead of patterns. They listen to apologies. They believe explanations. They hold on to potential rather than reality. But emotional intelligence requires something difficult. It requires accepting reality instead of clinging to hope. Because hope without evidence often becomes self-deception. When actions consistently contradict promises, emotionally intelligent people stop asking what someone says. They start paying attention to what someone does, because behavior reveals priorities. Behavior reveals character, and behavior reveals the truth that words often try to hide. A person who genuinely wants to rebuild trust understands that apologies alone are not enough. Promises alone are not enough. Good intentions alone are not enough. Trust is not rebuilt through speeches. It is rebuilt through consistency, through accountability, through repeated actions over time. Because trust is not rebuilt through words, it is rebuilt through behavior. And when someone's behavior continues to break trust despite countless promises, emotional intelligence requires recognizing the lesson they are teaching you, not the lesson they speak, the lesson they repeatedly demonstrate. Manipulators rarely control people through force. They control them through emotions, guilt, fear, confusion, obligation. Unlike openly aggressive people, manipulators often operate in subtle ways. Their tactics can be difficult to recognize because they rarely appear harmful at first. Instead of demanding control, they create emotional pressure. Instead of issuing commands, they influence your feelings. And instead of taking responsibility for their behavior, they find ways to make you feel responsible for theirs. They may twist conversations, deny obvious facts, or make you question your own perceptions. A discussion that begins with their actions somehow ends with you defending yourself. A problem they created somehow becomes your fault. And concerns you express are often dismissed, minimized, or turned against you. Sometimes they use guilt to gain compliance. Sometimes they use fear to maintain control. Sometimes they create confusion so that you become too exhausted to challenge them. Psychologists recognize that this behavior is particularly damaging because it slowly erodes psychological confidence. The damage is rarely immediate. It happens gradually. One conversation at a time. One accusation at a time. One manipulation at a time. Over time, victims begin doubting themselves, their memory, their judgment, even their reality. They start wondering if they are overreacting, too sensitive, too emotional, too demanding. And eventually, they may begin trusting the manipulator's version of events more than their own experiences. This is what makes emotional manipulation so dangerous. It doesn't simply influence behavior, it alters self-perception. Emotionally intelligent people understand something important. Healthy relationships create clarity. Manipulative relationships create confusion. Healthy relationships build confidence. Manipulative relationships create self-doubt. Healthy relationships encourage independence. Manipulative relationships encourage dependency. A person who intentionally manipulates your emotions is not making an accidental mistake. They are attempting to control your inner world. They are attempting to gain influence over your thoughts, feelings, decisions, and sense of self. And when someone repeatedly seeks that kind of control, they reveal a profound lack of respect for your emotional autonomy. Because genuine love respects freedom, genuine respect values honesty, and genuine connection never requires psychological manipulation. That is why emotional manipulation is one of the most serious forms of disrespect. And that level of disrespect should never be ignored. Vulnerability is one of the highest forms of trust. When you share your fears, your insecurities, your past wounds, your private struggles, you are giving someone access to parts of yourself that most people never see. You are allowing them behind the emotional walls that normally protect you. And that kind of openness requires courage. Psychologists often describe vulnerability as the foundation of genuine human connection. Because without vulnerability, relationships remain superficial. But with vulnerability comes risk. The risk that your trust will be respected, or the risk that it will be abused. Emotionally healthy individuals understand the responsibility that comes with being trusted. They protect those vulnerabilities. They handle them with care. They recognize that when someone shares their deepest fears and painful experiences, they are offering something valuable. Something that should never be used as a weapon. Toxic individuals often do the opposite. They weaponize vulnerability. Perhaps they bring up your weaknesses during arguments. Perhaps they remind you of your past mistakes whenever conflict arises. Perhaps they joke about painful experiences that were shared in confidence. Or perhaps they use private information against you at the exact moment they know it will hurt the most. What makes this behavior especially damaging is that it attacks emotional safety, the very thing that trust is built upon. When someone takes your vulnerability and turns it into ammunition, they send a powerful psychological message. They are showing that your pain is not something they wish to understand. It is something they are willing to exploit. Over time, this can create deep emotional consequences. People who experience this kind of betrayal often become more guarded, more cautious, more afraid to open up in future relationships. Not because they are unwilling to trust, but because trust has been punished instead of protected. Emotionally intelligent people recognize something important. The way someone handles your vulnerability reveals their character. Anyone can be kind when things are easy. Anyone can appear supportive when there is nothing to gain. But true character is revealed when someone is given the power to hurt you and chooses not to. When someone attacks the very things you trusted them to protect, they are not simply hurting your feelings. They are violating emotional safety itself. They are breaking one of the most important unspoken agreements in any relationship. The agreement that says, "What you share with me in trust will remain safe with me." Once that agreement is broken, rebuilding trust becomes incredibly difficult. Because relationships are not sustained by love alone, they are sustained by safety. And relationships cannot survive where emotional safety no longer exists. Boundaries are not walls, they are instructions. They tell others how to treat us. They communicate what we are comfortable with, what we are not willing to tolerate, and what is necessary for us to feel respected, safe, and valued. Many people misunderstand boundaries. They assume boundaries are selfish, controlling, or even hostile. But psychology teaches something very different. Healthy boundaries are not designed to push people away. They are designed to create healthier relationships. In fact, some of the strongest and most respectful relationships exist because both people clearly understand and honor each other's limits. Psychology teaches that healthy relationships depend on mutual respect for boundaries. Without boundaries, resentment grows, trust weakens, and emotional exhaustion becomes inevitable. Yet some individuals repeatedly ignore them. You say no. They pressure you. You express discomfort. They dismiss it. You explain your limits. They cross them anyway. At first, you may assume they simply misunderstood. You may believe they didn't realize the impact of their behavior. You may even give them the benefit of the doubt. And in some situations, that can be reasonable. Everyone occasionally makes mistakes. Everyone sometimes overlooks a boundary unintentionally. But emotionally intelligent people pay attention to patterns. Because after enough conversations, after enough explanations, and after enough second chances, the situation becomes much clearer. After enough repetitions, the issue is no longer misunderstanding. It becomes intentional disrespect. When someone repeatedly ignores your boundaries, they are making a choice to prioritize their desires over your comfort, their convenience over your needs, their preferences over your well-being. And that choice reveals something important about how they view the relationship. People who genuinely respect you may not always agree with your boundaries, but they acknowledge them, they honor them, and they understand that respecting your limits is part of respecting you. People who repeatedly violate boundaries are showing you exactly how much they value your needs, not through their words, but through their actions. Because actions reveal priorities more clearly than promises ever can. Emotional intelligence requires recognizing this reality. It requires understanding that every boundary violation carries a message about respect, a message about consideration, and a message about how seriously someone takes your feelings. The healthiest people are not those who constantly defend their boundaries. They are those who recognize when someone has repeatedly chosen not to respect them. And emotional intelligence requires paying attention to that message. People reveal their true character during difficult times, not when life is easy, not when everything is going well, not when success is abundant and there is nothing at risk, but when challenges appear, when pressure increases, when sacrifices become necessary, and when supporting someone requires effort instead of convenience. It is easy to appear loyal when circumstances are comfortable. It is easy to seem caring when helping costs nothing. It is easy to make promises when those promises have not yet been tested. But adversity has a unique way of exposing what words often hide. One of the most painful experiences is discovering that someone abandons, betrays, or exploits you when you need support most. Perhaps they disappear when life becomes difficult. Perhaps they turn your struggles into opportunities for personal gain. Perhaps they offer support with words but provide none when it truly matters. Or perhaps they choose their own comfort while you are facing one of the hardest periods of your life. What makes this type of betrayal so painful is not only the action itself, it is the timing. Because the moments when we are struggling are often the moments when we are most vulnerable. And vulnerability naturally increases our need for trust, connection, and support. Psychologists often note that adversity acts as a character test. Because difficult moments remove social masks, they remove convenience, they remove appearances, and they reveal what people value when choices become difficult. When someone chooses self-interest while you are struggling, they reveal priorities that are difficult to ignore. They reveal what matters most to them, not through promises, not through explanations, but through actions. Emotionally intelligent people understand that behavior during difficult times often provides the clearest insight into someone's character. Because true loyalty is not measured during comfort, it is measured during hardship. True care is not demonstrated when everything is easy. It is demonstrated when helping requires sacrifice. And true support is not proven through words, it is proven through presence. The memory of these experiences often stays with us for years, not because we enjoy holding on to pain, but because the brain is designed to learn from moments that affect our safety and well-being. The brain naturally remembers who was safe and who was dangerous during periods of vulnerability. It remembers who showed compassion, who disappeared, who supported, and who exploited. This is not weakness, it is a survival mechanism. A way of protecting us from repeating painful experiences in the future. And for good reason. Because when someone reveals who they are during your darkest moments, emotional intelligence requires paying attention. Not to what they promised, but to what they chose. Perhaps the most deceptive form of disrespect is cruelty disguised as truth. Unlike obvious insults or direct attacks, this type of behavior often hides behind a mask of honesty, which is precisely what makes it so difficult to recognize. You've probably heard statements like, "I'm just being honest. I'm only telling you the truth. This is for your own good. Someone had to say it." Or perhaps, "You can't handle the truth." At first glance, these statements may sound reasonable. After all, honesty is generally considered a positive quality. Honesty builds trust. Honesty strengthens relationships. And honesty allows people to grow. But genuine honesty and cruelty are not the same thing. In fact, psychology makes an important distinction between truthful communication and harmful communication. One seeks understanding, the other seeks dominance. Emotionally intelligent communication combines truth with empathy. It considers timing, delivery, and intention. Because emotionally intelligent people understand that how something is said is often just as important as what is said. Truth delivered with respect can help someone grow. Truth delivered with contempt can cause unnecessary harm. A person who genuinely cares about you may offer difficult feedback. They may point out mistakes, challenge unhealthy behaviors, or encourage personal growth. But they do so with the intention of helping, not humiliating. Their goal is understanding, not superiority. Unfortunately, some individuals use honesty as a shield, a socially acceptable excuse that allows them to criticize, insult, belittle, or degrade others without taking responsibility for the damage they cause. When confronted, they simply hide behind the phrase, "I'm just being honest." But honesty does not require cruelty, and truth does not require disrespect. Psychologists often note that communication is influenced not only by content, but by intention. The same words can have entirely different meanings depending on why they are being spoken. Is the goal to help or to hurt? To support or to shame? To encourage growth or to establish superiority? People who consistently use honesty as an excuse to insult, belittle, or degrade others are often hiding hostility behind a socially acceptable label. They present themselves as truth-tellers, but their behavior reveals something different. Because if their real goal were truth, they would care whether the message helps. If their real goal were honesty, they would care about understanding. Instead, they often focus on creating discomfort, embarrassment, or emotional pain. The goal isn't truth. The goal is superiority. The goal is feeling powerful by positioning themselves above someone else. And there is a massive psychological difference between those two things. Emotionally intelligent people understand that truth without empathy can become a weapon, and any person who repeatedly uses that weapon while calling it honesty is revealing far more about their character than they realize. Here's what many people misunderstand. Forgiveness is not always about the other person. It's about freeing yourself from resentment. It is about releasing emotional weight so that it does not continue to control your thoughts, decisions, and peace of mind. But emotional intelligence also teaches something equally important. Forgiveness does not eliminate consequences. It does not erase patterns, and it does not automatically restore trust. You can forgive someone and still walk away. You can forgive someone and never trust them again. You can forgive someone and refuse to give them access to your life. Because forgiveness is an internal process. But access is a behavioral decision. And those two things are not the same. Self-respect requires something many people struggle to practice: recognizing when someone's behavior has revealed enough information. Not based on one mistake, not based on emotions in the moment, but based on consistent patterns over time. Because people communicate their character more through actions than apologies. And emotionally intelligent individuals learn to observe that difference clearly. The healthiest people are not those who forgive everything. They are not those who ignore patterns. And they are not those who repeatedly sacrifice their own peace for the sake of keeping others comfortable. They are the ones who understand the difference between compassion and self-betrayal. Compassion allows understanding. Self-betrayal ignores boundaries. Compassion allows forgiveness. Self-betrayal ignores consequences. And emotional intelligence is knowing where to draw that line. Because sometimes the most psychologically healthy response is not another chance. It's not another explanation. And it's not another apology. It's a stronger boundary, a clearer decision, and a deeper commitment to self-respect. If this message resonated with you, remember, respect is not something you beg for. It is something you protect. And the moment you begin protecting it, everything changes.